Hey everyone, welcome to Small Farm Living. Today we're just going to get right into craft number one. Now this is an arrow that I found at the thrift store and I kind of liked the rusticness of it, but it wasn't quite my style. And if you've watched my videos before, you know that I have a small vegetable and flower farm, and that's pretty much how I make my living. And I grow flowers for fresh bouquets, but I also grow them for drying. So we are going to use this beautiful red coxcomb, this Dusty Miller, and some yarrow in this craft. Also some moss that I picked up from my little forest section. Now the first thing I'm going to do is add some Waverly Antique Wax to this because although I like the wood effect, it wasn't quite the color that I wanted. And then I decided to rub some all over the white too, just to try to tone that down a little bit. Now I am going to apologize for my voice. I have had the cruddy crud for about a week and I did lose my voice and it's just starting to come back. So I'm going to attempt to get this video out with a voiceover even though it is a little scratchy. Now, if you can tell, when I was taking that wet baby wipe and wiping the Waverly Wax off of the white, it was really kind of pulling a lot of it off and it wasn't deepening as much as I wanted. So I just thought I would let that dry and address that a little bit later. But for now, I'm going to take these awesome little needle point clippers that I got from the dollar store, and I really like these because I can get them down inside my dried flowers and I can cut off little pieces. And I'm doing this because I just want small pieces. I'm not going to be using the stems. And this yarrow, I'm just cutting off the heads, but each one of the heads has some little side branches on it as well, so we'll be cutting those down a little bit. But isn't that pretty? It was just a pale pink that I dried. I grow a mix, so I have all different colors. But we're going to start with this moss. I just want to put a base down, and I'm just going to decorate the section in between the two jute twine pieces that are wrapped around the arrow. And I had taken this moss and I put it in the oven at 200 degrees and I let it bake for about 2 hours, and that was to kill off any bugs that might have been in there and also just to make sure that it was thoroughly dry. And I just want to get a good base of this down. Now what I do is I like to put my base on and then I'll move into the flowers, but I will, as I go along, add a few more pieces of moss if I think I want to have a little more of that effect. Now here we are, we're breaking down these coxcomb heads. This is called Chief Fire, and it's beautiful fresh and it is gorgeous dried. So I am just going to fill in here and there on this little section, just hot gluing everything together. And I'm just kind of tucking some under some of the pieces of moss. Some will go on top. I don't want this to be too spread out, but I want it to give kind of a full look, if that makes any sense. I just don't want it super long sprawling off the sides of the arrow. So I'm just going to continue to add the coxcomb, and then once I have enough pieces of coxcomb on here, I am then going to add some more of my other dried flowers. Now this Dusty Miller, it's just your standard type that you can buy at the garden centers. I do have two types. One is more for making bouquets. It's a broader leafed type. But you can see I'm just breaking off pieces of the stem because there's so many little side branches all over this. I can use all sections of it and it doesn't look like I've broken a piece off. So I'm again just going to tuck this in and out here and there. I'm going to start adding some yarrow. And then as I go, I will just continue to grab more coxcomb, yarrow, or Dusty Miller, depending on what I think I need to add here and there. And I kind of have to be careful because if you've ever done dried flowers before, you know sometimes you get carried away and you're just adding and adding and adding, and there can be a point where there actually is too much. So I'm trying to be very careful, cut it down into smaller pieces just to make sure that I have enough color of each kind of evenly distributed throughout. So there we have it, and this is what it looked like when it was done. Again, I just did this section. And you can see now in this picture, the very end piece, I did sand that down and put some more antique Waverly Wax on there. But let me know, do you like working with dried flowers? I actually love it. And you can see a little bouquet that I have in my little jar back there. I just stuck those in there. And then in the very back in the yellow, if you're wondering, that's just some marigold leaves. Now we're going to move on to craft number 2. This is also going to be made with natural elements. I have a bunch of grapes on my property, and I went out because this is the time of year in the Pacific Northwest where you trim your grapes. So I took off one of the really long runners, and I'm just going to very carefully twist this into an O shape. Now we're going to make an XO for Valentine's Day. And even though this is still green inside, I think because of the time of year it is and the fact that it's cold outside, it was a little bit brittle and I had to be careful not to actually snap it in half. But now I've got that done and I'm going to set that aside, and I'm going to grab 2 sticks that I picked out that have moss on them that I'm going to make the X out of. And I just want to set that next to my O to make sure that the height is going to be comparable. They'll probably not turn out exactly perfect, but as long as I get them close, then I'm going to take some jute twine and I'm going to wrap that around and tie 1 knot. And then as soon as I get that done, I'm just going to take one side and kind of twist and wind it all throughout. And then I'll do the same thing on the other side, just so that I kind of have a nice twisted section there for it to be secure. I'm going to give it a couple of good knots on the back and then trim off the excess. And now that I have my X, there are some bare spots, and I had to fiddle with it a little bit because when I tied it, it kind of moved it a little bit. But now that I've got that all secured, I'm just going to take some more of my moss pieces. Some of these are on smaller sticks, and I'm just leaving them attached to those smaller sticks and attaching them to my X. And I don't know, let me know, do you guys like natural materials in crafting? I really do, but I have to admit, I'm kind of eclectic. There's sometimes I like really shiny things, sparkly things, but I do tend to gear more towards natural things, especially since I grow stuff for a living. But now that we have the X done, we're going to set that aside and work on the O. And where the grapevine started and stopped, I'm again just going to take some of that jute twine and I'm going to twist it around several times and tie it off just to make sure that it stays secured. And then I'm going to start gluing the moss all around the O. Now, I thought I had a lot of moss, and by the time I finish this, I am almost out. So I'm going to have to go back outside in my wooded section and collect some more. And if you think it would be fun for me to take you along again, like I did in a previous video, let me know down in the comments, and I surely will take you along with me when we go out collecting more materials. So now our O is done, and here's what we look like. You can see the O did turn out a little bit bigger than the X, but overall, I was happy with how they turned out. Very natural, very rustic, and I like that there's some more simpler elements to my Valentine's decor other than all shiny. So now we're going to move on to craft number 3. Now this craft is kind of a play on natural elements. I found this heart at the thrift store for 25 cents, and it's something you'd normally get at the Dollar Tree. But I got this beautiful kind of floral botanical paper, and I got it off of Temu of all places. And I thought the natural element of the botanical paper would be really pretty on this heart. So what I'm going to do is take my pen and I'm going to trace around the whole heart. Now with this one, when I traced it, it was actually exactly the same shape as the heart. So when I'm cutting it out, I'm going to go a little bit wider because I do want some overhang, because I'm going to be sanding the edges of these off so that it forms a really beautiful edge. Now I'm going to take my Mod Podge and I'm going to dump some on here because I'm going to generously, I can't talk either. I'm going to put a whole bunch of this on here so it's very well covered all the way to the edges. And then once that is on there, I went and stood in front of the wood stove and let the heater that was blowing the hot air dry the glue. So it dried faster and I got nice and warm. And I'm just going to lay this on here, flip it over so that I can make sure that it's perfectly straight. And then I'll flip it back over and I will take my little mini iron, which I just love. It's so cute and tiny. And I'm just going to very slowly, whoops, forgot my parchment paper. I'm going to very slowly rub this around so that the heat has time to penetrate down to that Mod Podge to reactivate it and get this paper glued onto my heart. Now, if you're interested in any of the tools, materials that I'm using today, I will try to have those all linked down below for you. But now I'm just going to take my little finger sander and I'm just going to, in a downward motion, work my way around the whole heart. And it doesn't take a whole lot of pressure. You can see when I lift it, it just comes right off. And now that I have it all done, I have this beautiful kind of a dusty deep blue trim, and I've had it in my stash for a really long time, and I thought it really went well with some of the blue tones in this paper. So I'm going to take my glue gun and just kind of do a little wiggly strip of glue, trying to get it to be the same size or width as my trim, and I'm just going to work my way all the way around the edges, and then when I get to the base, I'm going to give it a little angle cut, and I did that with some, you can see the tape there. If you don't tape the ends of this stuff before or after, it will just unravel on you like crazy. So now we'll get that glued down on there. And look how, I just think this is so pretty. I'm telling you, at the end, you'll see it hanging, and it doesn't do it quite the justice because of the wall color. But now what I need to do is I am going to take this trim also, which is pretty much the same color. I'm sure I probably bought them at the same time. And this is what I'm going to use for the hanger. You can see that there is tape there on that end so that it's not unraveling, which is fine because you'll never see it. And then I put tape, and I'm going to cut right in the center of that so both ends will stay and not unravel. And then I'm going to put another glob of hot glue and put that down on top of it. Now here's a little glue trick if you haven't seen it before. When you need to add another one, just heat up the end with the tip of your glue stick, stick it in there, and press it to the one in the front lightly, and it will stick together and won't flop out on you. So now right here, it feels like they're dry enough, and I'm just going to add another big old blob of hot glue on the top of there just to secure it in place. And once that was done, I noticed I could see a little bit of the white on the edges. So I decided I would take my hot glue gun and very, very carefully put a little tiny stream of hot glue and then put some jute twine around the edge. And I love the blue and kind of brownish tone. I guess I wouldn't say that it's totally brown, but kind of a tanny brown. And as I get to the end there, I am going to give it an angle cut again. And I will just finish that off with a little dab of hot glue. Without burning my fingers, hopefully. So here's what it looked like when it was all done. I absolutely love these papers. And instead of using a lighter, I decided to just trim off some of the fuzzies with the scissors. But this is what I meant. The wall color kind of doesn't do it justice. You can't see everything in detail. But I'm telling you, this turned out really pretty. And I think I'm really liking this deep dusty blue with some of these botanical papers that I got. Let me know your thoughts. And here we are, our final reveal. We have our moss X and O. Then moving up to the arrow with all of our dried flowers. Let me know down in the comments which one is your favorite, if you have one. If you don't, no big deal. And here is the heart we just did. Don't forget, I also put out gardening videos if you're interested, but I do also put out crafting videos. So I just want to thank you for hanging out with me, and I will see you next time.